If you are a Stoke City fan of a certain age, this is going to be the best thing that you've heard all year. This is a special walk down memory lane, a Potter's Pod with Liam Lawrence. Liam, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Everything good? Everything all right?
Yeah, all good.
Stuff. And when you speak to former footballers, which obviously we do quite a lot, they usually fall into one of two categories. They're either the kind of people that love talking about their career and talking about football now, or they're slightly reticent about talking about their career. Before we get into the podcast, which camp are you in? Because this really does dictate which way this podcast goes.
I'm in a bit of both, because obviously I talk about football every day in my life for the last 20 odd years, and I've done the after dinner speaks and chats and stuff like that. So it doesn't bother me. It doesn't faze me. I'm not one of them that rings people up to try and get on something to do something, but I don't mind it. And this is a good podcast, so
yes,
it's a pleasure.
That's right. So we've already established before we started recording that you've listened to the Ryan Shawcross episode. So you are only the second former player to be on the podcast. So you're in like top.
I'm in good company.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Big booking. It's good. We like it. So you'll know then that what happens is we chat all about your life, how you got to where you are, and about what you like off the pitch. Because obviously, Stoke fans will know you from promotion season, Premier League, etc., etc. But we want to try and get to know you as a person, how you got to where you are. So let's start by your childhood. You were born in Worksop, grew up in Retford.
Yeah.
Outskirts of Nottinghamshire.
Just on the outskirts, yeah. So Retford sort of in between Worksop and Nottingham, if you like. Tough upbringing with a big family, and not a great deal, if you like. So everything that we had and everything that I ended up getting was fought for.
What do you mean by that?
Just we didn't have a lot as a family, you know. We were hard working, like the people of Stoke, working class sort of town and working class family, and I had to really graft to get my way into the local sides to be able to be given the chance that I eventually got to play football.
Because Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, South Yorkshire, big former mining communities, is that part of the...
Yeah, Retford's right in between, so that you had like Worksop, where there was a coal mine, there was Manton just down the road, so we were surrounded by all that sort of stuff, and a lot of my uncles went down the pits and stuff, so...
That's where your work ethic comes from?
I'd like to think so with the Irish in me and the Italian background with my nan. We've always had a hard-working family, it's just the town we were from and the sort of family that we had. It was either work or you've got nothing.
Parents' jobs growing up?
Yeah, my mum, she's worked in care, so she was an NHS nurse for a while, and she's a care home for the elderly. And then my dad at the time, he used to work on the quarries, so he'd be all over the country on the quarries, and then my stepdad came in when I was really young. He was one of the main influences on my football. And he used to work on the roads for the council, tarmacking the roads and stuff. We could do with him now, couldn't we? Because our roads at the minute are an absolute disgrace.
See, we get all contemporary updates and everything on this podcast, not just football. Sorry, carry on.
So yeah, my stepdad, he's passed away now, passed a couple of years ago, but yeah, all my family's work. My granddad was a lorry driver that went all over Europe and stuff like that. So
brothers and sisters?
Brother, yeah. Brother Sean, sister Hayley. I'll say brother then. She'd kill me. And they both worked, so...
Yeah. What do you think you were like as a kid?
I was a terror. I was a horror. Hyperactive. These days they'd probably call it ADHD, wouldn't they? And give me a label or whatever it is. I was always in trouble at school, if you like, and just always wanted to be doing something, and I think that football gave me a release. So it's a good job I found football, because I'd have either ended up in trouble or ended up in the army or something, I think.
Where do you think that came from, like the wanting to be in and around stuff all the time?
I don't know. I think it's because I used to hang around with older boys. So all my cousins were older than me, and you're always competing against older lads, aren't you? Whether it's playing football or on your BMXs or doing something, there was always a challenge and a want to be accepted as a kid.
That area, I think, brings that out a lot of people. like where you're talking about now. I know it well. And I think if you grow up there, it's like, because of the mining background and a lot of people were involved in the collieries, it's like it's still got that, it kind of passed down the generations of you work all week, you go to the pub on Friday night,
Yeah.
football Saturday, and then you do it all again on Monday.
Yeah, and that's like my friends now to this day I went to school with, they work hard all week, and, some live for the Friday and Saturday nights where they can have a beer and stuff like that. And some are different, and then they've got families or whatever it is now, and some have got plenty of money, so...
When you are coming into football, and we'll go through your time at Mansfield and coming through in a minute, but how do you kind of shake off, if you've been brought up around that kind of mindset that we've just discussed, how do you shake that off and concentrate just on the football? That must have been tricky.
It was, but I don't know, there was always something in me. As soon as I started playing football as a young lad, I wanted to do nothing else. There was nothing else that interested me. My mates some were into bricklaying, some were into cars, and all I wanted to do was play football. So if my mum asked me to go to the shop rather than go on my BMX, I'd take the ball up the road or down the road, as you like. So yeah, it was just something that I had pure focus on as a kid.
Elizabethan High School?
Yeah, so it was my secondary school that I ended up finishing at. Again, I wasn't great. That's why now when I preach on to my kids and to the kids in the academy that it's so important, your school and your education, because if I could turn back the clock, goodness, I'd go back to school, I'd knuckle down, I wouldn't be a little pest to the teachers and a nuisance and getting suspended and stuff like that, because it's so important, because my only skill set is football. Whereas, I tell my lads and the kids in the academy that I have an array of skill sets. I have more strings to your bow than I did, if you like.
So when you're in that high school and the teachers are saying, Liam, where's your homework? Why haven't you done it? Are you saying, don't worry, I'm going to be a footballer?
Yeah, that's pretty
and
much.
How did they react?
That's pretty much exactly the conversations. When they ask you what do you want to be when you're older, because you have them sort of meetings and stuff like that to see which path you take on your education. And I wasn't interested. I just kept saying I'm going to be a footballer, and they would laugh because I was always in trouble. I was always outside the headmaster's office or something. Don't get me wrong, I was good in certain lessons that I enjoyed, but the ones I didn't, I was just a young kid and I just got in trouble. So when I said to them I want to be a footballer, they used to make them laugh, but I knew deep down I had a burning desire and it was all I was going to do.
You played for Retford United.
Yeah.
We won't talk about that too much. Let's talk about your time at Mansfield. So when you're in history and they're going to you, have you done your homework? And you go, no, I'm going to be a footballer. When you sign for Mansfield Town, does that further make you more difficult to deal with, do you think?
It was, when I'd finished with Retford, well, it was at the same time, we played Forest in a friendly game because Retford had a load of good players. Forest wanted to have a look at us and see if they could poach any of us. Anyway, we ended up playing Forest and we beat them 6-4. And I scored 4. So they signed me and 4 other of our lads. So I ended up at Forest for 5 years, from 10 to 15. But yeah, so when I was there, I thought I was the Charlie Big, if you like, and whatever the teachers said, I didn't really take much notice because I was going to play for Forest. And then I got released. So
when you are growing up and your family have got proper jobs and it's Liam's going to plays for Forest and they're asking your stepdad, they're asking your mum about how he's getting on and all that kind of stuff, how do you think it affected you being released at the age of 15 by Forest? How do you think it affected your family?
It was a massive wake-up call. At the time, at 15, I'd got in trouble. I don't know, I can say it on the podcast. I'd been arrested. I'd found cider with my mates at the local fair and all the rest of it, and I was getting in trouble, so I got arrested for fighting, and Forest got wind of it. And at the time, it was coming up to the end of under-15s, and they just said, no, we're not having that. So they released me, and it was like, oh, God, what am I doing? What do I do here now then? So it was a massive shock for me and a slap in the face that I needed to wake me up and make me mature rather quickly.
And then from that point, it was one of those things where do you think that there's been times in your career where you think back to that time to make you refocus?
Yeah, definitely. Because I remember being at home when I should have been training and stuff like that, and I didn't have a club. I went on trial at Sheffield United, actually did really well, but never got a call back, which happens. I see it, all the time now. And then Mansfield rang. So I was sat at home one night having tea and the phone rang, and it was a scout from Mansfield. Said, would you like to come down and play in a trial game for us? If it goes well, we'll offer you a deal. We'll offer you not an under-16, but a YTS, it was called at the time, which now obviously scholarship and stuff. And guess who the game was against? It was against Nottingham Forest. So, and I played right back. So I was gone from a striker to right back, but I managed to do well anyway, and Forest ended up Mansfield ended up offering me a deal.
Can I say something that you might not like on the podcast?
Go on.
Am I right in thinking you were a Man United fan growing up?
Correct, because of my stepdad, you can blame him.
Okay.
That's going to go down well.
I think anyone, with Junior said he was an Arsenal fan. I think no one thinks you live in a world where, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was me. My stepdad, he used to take me as a kid and stuff, so naturally you follow your family, don't you? And at that time, United were just starting to come good and win stuff, and the journey they went on was amazing because it sort of took me through my teens, but I know the Stoke fans don't like United.
I think if anyone's going to get forgiven, I think you're fine.
At least I'm not a Wolves or a Vale fan.
Exactly,
so.
Yeah, that's okay. Can I give you a quiz question?
Go on.
What is your connection with Mansfield Town and your first kind of soiree into that kind of world and Stoke City?
Connection?
Mm-hmm. Come on, you should know this straight away. Should be top of your head.
I'm trying to think who's connected to Mansfield from Stoke. Am I right on that line?
Yeah, he's doing all right. You're warm. Tepid, but warm.
It's going to annoy me because I'm going to know when you say it.
Who was your youth team manager?
It was Stuart Watkiss.
Alongside? Former Stoke City player.
Go on.
I'll give you one more clue. People listening to this might be shouting it. Think make of car.
Fordy.
Tony Ford.
Yeah. He was the assistant manager of the first team, still playing at, was it 41 at the time? Or 30?
Wasn't he one of the people that was when you were coming through the youth team?
He sort of mixed between the two, obviously, because they didn't have no money back then. So Fordy used to sort of help Stuart and run the first team as well.
So he was obviously played a lot of games for Stoke.
Right, okay. It's a funny story because when I'd signed for Mansfield, at the start of the under-16 season, we were doing a bleep test just next to the stadium where they used to have this Astro, and Fordy joined in, and he was so fit. Everyone was saying, no one's going to beat him, Fordy will win this, and I beat him. It was just me and him left at the end, and we were going toe-to-toe, and he ended up dropping out. And I beat him, and that was my claim to fame at the time, that I beat Fordy at a bleep test. So. What
do you think he would say about your career, looking back now, obviously knowing you right at the beginning, to see at his club where you came through and did such good things?
I'd say he was quite surprised, although he knew the potential, because I was still quite leery and I was quite, not naughty, but...
Lovable rogue?
Yeah, one of them. So he used to pull me aside when I needed pulling aside and stuff like that. But he knew there was talent there. So sometimes he let things slide when normally they wouldn't.
He's sent a message.
Oh, has he?
Yeah, do you want to hear it?
Yeah, go on.
2 seconds. I'll go with it. We'll obviously edit out the bit where we had to get to the point where we added the mention between the two.
Right.
Here we go.
Hi Liam, this is Tony Ford. Hopefully you remember me from your Mansfield days. I've had a lot to watch your career. Been very interesting.
Changed.
He had a natural talent, Liam. But the thing I think that helped him, he was competitive. He was very competitive, and the game for him was fun. He just loved playing football, and if you put those things together, talent, his competitiveness, and his enjoyment of the game, you could see he was going to play. He was going to play for a significant amount of time, definitely, and be successful at it. And he grew up very quickly. Like I say, he was a bit of a, well, you'd say a bit of a daft brush at times, but that was part of him. He was very, very genuine. It's just the way he was. But he certainly had something there. You thought that he's definitely going to make a living out of football. It was incredible to see how he progressed and matured so quickly as well. So like I say, you don't. you don't play in at that level unless you've got a certain amount of maturity as well. So I was really, really pleased for him. Question for you though is, are you still as crazy as you were as a 16 and 17-year-old?
Oh, brilliant. His voice hasn't changed one bit. Oh, that's giving me goosebumps. That's ace. Bless him.
So answer the question, are you still as daft as a brush?
No.
Calm down.
Yeah, I have my moments, but I'm not. No. I started maturing sort of 23, 24, maybe a little bit after that. Well, I was nothing like I was as a 16-year-old because I was almost out of control. I hadn't said what he'd say near enough, didn't I?
Yeah, you called it.
Yeah.
You called it. I'm trying to build up a picture because, again, I know we say this every single time, but Stoke fans, they come in Ricardo's to see pictures of you. When I was preparing for this, I spoke to a load of my mates that are Stoke fans that support you, and they want to tell me about their memories of you and all that kind of stuff. And I want to get a real understanding of what it was like to be you at certain points in your life. And when you were playing for Mansfield, you were obviously a young lad. You were in a team full of quite a few local players that were coming through. You would have been, I remember seeing it. You were the one that was coming through that everyone was talking about. You were the next big thing. You were the centre of Mansfield, and that's a small town. What do you think you'd have been like if I'd have bumped into you at the age of 19 in the Four Seasons shopping centre?
You would have probably said, look at that. Look at him. Who does he think he is? Probably one of them. But if you actually spoke to me, it was one of them that, you know, the sort of person that gives off the impression they're a bit of an idiot, but when you actually speak to them, they're actually quite sound. I think that's how it would have gone. Once we have a conversation and we communicate, you would have thought, he's all right.
So you'd have been in the Four Seasons shopping centre, and you'd gone to the bowling alley next door.
I wouldn't have been the bowling alley.
Have you never been there?
No, not there.
So for Stoke fans that have never been to Mansfield, first of all, where have you been? There might have been a few people who to Phil Mill down the years. So the Four Seasons shopping centre. I never thought I'd be talking about this in the podcast. It's like their version of the Pottery Centre, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like the Meadowhall of Mansfield, if you like, or the Trafford Centre of Mansfield.
Yeah. So when you talk about being like what you were like as a kid, people have said lovable rogue. When I was talking to Tony about it, he was saying like daft and things like that. It gets like 2001, 2002. Didn't you miss a game because you'd done your arm?
Oh, yeah.
Are you happy talking about that?
Yeah, no issue. Because if there's any young footballers out there, they should listen to it. So I'd been out. It was after a game, and I'd been out one Saturday night in Doncaster. And I drove. And I was going to leave my car. And I didn't. So I'd had a couple of drinks and drove home at the time, and I had an accident. No other car involved or anything like that. It was just an accident, and I come off the road, hit a wall, and the walls come into my side of the car and hit the door and snapped my arm. So luckily it wasn't my head or anything like that, and it snapped my arm. And this was, I don't know if it was mid-season or just close to Christmas. I can't remember the exact date of it. So it took me out for a chunk of time, just as I was starting to progress and got myself sort of in the team and my feet under the table with the first team. So one of the biggest mistakes in my life, something I regret massively. You know, we've all done silly things and stuff like that, but something I regret and should never have done.
Doing what you do now, what do you think Liam Lawrence in your current role would think of 20-year-old Liam Lawrence turning up in his Civic Type R?
I'd be saying, why all of this so quickly now? Why don't you just relax and just wait, do your football, let all that do the talking, and then just see it'll bring everything you want then. But I was young, I thought I was Jack the Lad, and I wanted everything now. I wanted the nice car, I wanted the cash and everything that comes with it. Luckily for me, I had a burning hunger and desire that I had to make it. I had to be at the top. Mansfield wasn't enough. The next championship wasn't enough. I had to play in the Premier League. I had to play against the best players. I had to play at international level if I could. So I was lucky that I had that to go along with the the silliness.
Who do you think you were trying to? Do you think it comes from trying to prove people wrong? Why did you think you needed that car at the time, which you spent all your money on your insurance? Why did you think you had to be that at that time? Did you think there was an image? Do you think it comes from a working class background? What do you think it comes from?
Do you know what? I don't know, and psychologists will know better than me, but I just always wanted to be the best at everything and have the best stuff, because like I say, when we were growing up, my mum struggled to provide for me and my stepdad at times, and my friends had nice things, and I just think it was a mixture of them sort of things, that I had to be the best at everything, whether it was playing tennis or playing football or whatever it is. I had to be better than anyone else and have better things than anyone else. And when I made it as a footballer and I started to earn a bit of money, that's what I tried to do, I guess.
And just to finish that question off, what do you think 20-year-old Liam Lawrence would say to the job that you're doing now, Liam Lawrence, about that advice?
It'd probably go in there and out there. It would. And I know that goes on with some of our lads at the academy. You tell them here and it comes out there straight away. But me at that time, at that age, yes, I would have listened, but not for long.
Yeah, it'd be like, listen, I've made every mistake you're about to make.
Yeah.
Trust me, don't go down that route.
Yeah, but he still would.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about the playoff final, because you've spoken about that till the cows come home, and people that know what we're talking about will know what we're talking about, and there's a million and one things that you've already spoken about that. So kind of move on to that. I want to find out what it was like to be you, to be coming through, being the hot prospect that we mentioned before. All these clubs are after you, and then all of a sudden you've lived all your life in Nottinghamshire, and then you get picked up and you get taken to Sunderland.
It was a strange time, because I had, like you say, quite a lot of interest. So I'd had phone calls from Cardiff, Crewe, Leeds. I went to Leeds as training ground to meet their manager in the off season. And then I went and met Mick McCarthy in a hotel near London. And when I spoke to him, I was just sold straight away. Yorkshireman, straight down the line, a spade's a spade. And as soon as we had a conversation, I was like, I want to go and see the training ground. I like him. So I went to Sunderland to the training ground. I don't know if you've seen it. So it was immaculate. It had everything. It had loads of pitches. They were like Wembley. Swimming pool, jacuzzis, gyms. It just had everything, and I just got a good feel about it. And me coming from having nothing, and when I say nothing at Mansfield, as YTs we were playing on school parks where people walk the dogs and let them everywhere. That's what we grew up, not like now with the academies where they play on carpets, bowling greens. So
Don't know the ball?
No, they don't. We say that all the time, but yeah, as soon as I went to Sunderland, I was like, wow, I've arrived.
What was it like off the pitch, turning up there?
It was a bit of a shock, because like you've gone from being the big fish at Mansfield to then meeting Julio Arca, Marcus Stewart, Gary Breen, internationals, Mark Poom, people like that. So all of a sudden, you starting out again, and the slate's clean, and you've got to do everything again to impress and get yourself into another team and take on a new challenge of the Championship.
How did you feel walking into that dressing room?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I'd feed off Stewie, Marcus Stewart and Gary Breen, and we had a good core of young lads as well, so I still had that, not silliness, but we still had that sort of camaraderie, and we just had a good mix. We had really good coaching staff, and it all clicked.
Do you think your personality has opened more doors than anything? Because you know how people say, we keep coming back to lovable rogue, but you know how people say that. Do you think people like, if you weren't a nice person and you weren't good to be around, they'd have got rid of you? Like, no disrespect, what happened at Forest. Whereas because people go, actually, yeah, he's a bit cheeky, but he's a good lad, and I think he'll do all right, and his work's hard. Do you think that made people think, oh, actually, I like him because of that, and give you opportunities?
Maybe. I wouldn't say that nowadays, because I'm not really a networker, and I never was when I was a young lad or when I was a player, the type of person to go and engage in conversations with other people. It was more of if I had conversations with people, they would see that I was sound, and obviously when you have coaches and managers around you that get to know you, because you have to get to know, as they say in football, know the player, know the person before you know the player, they say. So once they got to know me, I knew that I wasn't just an idiot and a bit flash and a bit daft. That I actually cared about football and like Tony said there, was really competitive, that they took to me.
How'd you look back at your time at Sunderland?
Fondly. It was obviously sour how it ended, but which I'm sure we'll touch on. But we won the championship in my first season on record points at the time. Got in the Premier League, had a disaster because the club didn't spend any money because there was no money. Then went down and stuff, but even though we went down, there was still a good feeling around the city because the fans were still with us. They knew we had no money to spend and that we were fighting against everything. So when we came down, we were still all as one and together. And obviously Kino came in and then eventually I left.
We hear a lot about Newcastle and Sunderland being like goldfish bowls. Is that something that you like? It's like Celtic and Rangers and that kind of stuff where everyone's so passionate about football. Is that something you recognise?
Yeah, it's huge up there. So you've got your Newcastle, Sunderland, sort of Middlesbrough. The North East is massive, but if you play for Sunderland, Middlesbrough or Newcastle, you can't go anywhere without anyone knowing about it. And silly old me, where did I always used to go out? Newcastle. So
Tiger.
Yeah. So yeah, it is like a goldfish bowl up there, and everybody knows your business because you're playing for big clubs.
And is that being you at that time? Did you like that at points, or did you dislike that?
Yeah, of course I did. Being the type of lad that I was at the time, we were successful on the pitch. You had all the accolades of people complimenting you, and everywhere you went, if we went to an Italian in Sunderland, they'd give you it for free and things like that. So yeah, it was a good time.
Also, and I don't mean to, we don't have to talk about figures and all that kind of stuff, but I'm trying to, again, work out where your head's at. You've gone from being at Mansfield, where you come through as a YTS, so you probably wouldn't have been on a lot of money. You mentioned your background and working class background and what your mum did at NHS and what your stepdad did and all that kind of stuff. Is it all of a sudden you're earning decent money and you're in somewhere where people are telling you you're the best thing since sliced bread? What's that like for your head?
It's difficult to handle it, and I see kids nowadays that are earning outrageous money at 17, 18, 19, 20, and they can't handle it. And I wouldn't say I didn't handle it, but I can tell you some figures early on. It's no bother. I went from 900 at Mansfield, which was one of their record offers, because at the time I was flying, and they had to offer me, because my contract was up, they had to offer me a huge deal for the tribunal. So they offered me 900, and I took that. Then it came to when I was out of contract, and when I went to Sunderland, the tribunal got involved, and because the wages was 900, which was a big figure for them, they got some money. They got some money off Sunderland for it. So I went to Sunderland on $2,500 a week. So it's more than double your money. So I bought a house, I bought a car, then I bought another car. So I'm not on 10 grand a week, I'm on $2,500 a week. I've bought a 250 grand house, I bought a 40 grand and a 50 grand car. It doesn't add up. So I had to be careful that I still had to have success keep coming my way, or else I would have ended up like some lads are today that have gone bankrupt, or do you know what I mean? You know what I'm getting at? So I was just quite fortunate at the time that things snowballed and I carried on being successful, because if I wouldn't, things might have caught up with me.
That's not right.
It did in the end, and I soon got rid of one of the cars, soon sorted to pay off the mortgage and things like that. So, as I said, into my 20s, I slowly started to mature.
I want to get to the end of the month and actually have some money.
Exactly.
And I suppose in that circuit, and I'm not trying to make people feel sorry for footballers by any stretch of the imagination, and you're not either, but you're in a dressing room where you've come from an area, and again, I say this in the most respectful way possible, I'm acutely aware of it, where it can feel a bit like you're keeping up with the Joneses, and you go in on $2,500 a week, you sat next to Julio Arca, Marcus Stewart, and they're not on £2,500
No.
a week. But you're young, you feel like you need something to prove. You come from your own background, and you're thinking you need to keep up with them. So your nights out aren't normal nights out like you might have had if you weren't a footballer. You're doing the stuff that they do, but you're not on the same playing field.
That's it. So if I'm going out with my mates in Retford, I'm taking 20 quid out.
And getting back with change.
Yeah, and food.
Yeah.
But you're going out in Newcastle or you're going out wherever and you're on £2,500 a week, you sort of, you live to your means, don't you? When you're earning good money, you live like you're earning good money. And some people don't get me wrong. But I was one of the daft ones at the time that certainly was.
Again, we're not trying to, I can't be.
It's just total transparency and honesty from my end, that's all.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Can we talk about the time of what it was the first meeting with Mr. Keane and all that? And again, I don't want to make this podcast about someone other than you, but that's a big part of your career and your life story.
So obviously when Keano came in, me being a United fan, I was like, oh my God, wow. This is one of the best midfielders ever for me. Could do everything. And by the way, when he joined in training, he was outrageous. He was ridiculous. Never seen anything like it. But anyway, he came in. I actually quite liked him. But he's got this thing when he's a coach or a manager, and I'm sure he'll say the same, is where when he gets emotional, he struggles to... Yeah. So when he gets angry, just flies everywhere. And we ended up falling out. So,
what point did you realise that you might not see eye to eye?
I'm quite good at managing people, so throughout my career at that point, I always knew what a character was like. If a manager had a certain character, how I would play it. Don't be so cheeky at certain points. Go and knock on his door at certain points, or don't. And I just felt with Roy that one morning he'd come in and everything would be fine. He'd be happy. Yeah, morning, Liam. Morning, boys. Other mornings you couldn't speak to him. So it was always like this. And I thought, one day I think we're going to end up falling out. I just got that feeling, and then something happened on the training pitch, and we fell out.
You hear stories about people that the reason they grow up to be people pleasers is they come from a background where they don't know what kind of mood the people that are close to them are going to be in, so they always feel like they need to be like on the best behaviour to make sure they match that mood. Is that what it felt like at some?
It did feel like that at times, because like I say, you just never know what mood he's in. Even at pre-match meals and stuff like that, if the lads were talking too loud or having a laugh, if it was too leery and stuff like that, you could see him having a little bit of a look, and you're like, what have we done? So you're not always, but sometimes you're treading on eggshells when there was no need to be. We fell out. It was more my end. So do you want me to just quickly go over it? So we
only say what you want to say.
No, it's fine. It's totally fine. We trained one morning, and I think we'd been beat the week before 3-1 by Preston, and I'd played, and I'd not played very well. And on the Thursday morning, I think it was raining. You know what it's like up there, windy, and it was freezing. So we're training, and then he was doing the starting 11 for the upcoming weekend game against your sort of second string, all the subs, all the second string, and I weren't on either. So I was stood watching with a trialist and Robbie Elliott. Can you remember the left back? Because he was 35 at the time, he wasn't playing. So I'm stood watching training, and I'm like, no way. So my pride kicked in, and that Liam from younger years kicked in, and I was like, I'm not standing here watching training, there's just no way. So about 10 minutes went by, and I'm still stood there, I'm absolutely freezing. And I just turned and started walking in. And Keano saw me, stopped the training session, stopped the game, and started shouting, where are you going? Effing going. And I just said, I said, I'm going in. I said, I'm not standing there watching a training session. You're not going in here. I said, I am. And I carried on walking in. And as I'm walking in, I'm thinking, oh no. What are you doing here? You better get in the gym and get the boxing gloves ready, because this is going off. And I've gone in anyway. I'm sat in the changing rooms. About half an hour later, he's come in, nearly kicked the door off the hinges. get in my office now, get upstairs, follow me. So we've gone up anyway, we've sat as we are now, and he's just started effing and the C word every few seconds, you're this, you're a C, you're... And I've just thought, I'm not doing this. We're not getting anywhere. All he's doing is shouting. I'm shouting back at him. So I've stood up, gone to walk out, and he's grabbed me by the arm and I, come here. And the young lad in me's gone, just do it. And then, obviously, I'm so glad I didn't do anything at the time, because he's shouting, do you want to go? Let's go. Come on then, let's go. And I've grabbed the door of the office and I've quickly yanked it and brushed him off. And then I've gone into the sort of hallway, and all the secretaries and staff are like, what is going on in there? And I've managed to get away from him and get out of the situation, and he just said, keep your phone on, you're done here, go home. And that was that was my last ever time in Sunderland at the training ground, done.
You still, when you're talking about it seems like a real visceral memory.
It is. I just signed a new 4-year deal at the time as well. But to fall out with one of your heroes, plus your manager, and then you've got to move again, and you've got to think about your job and your future and everything else, it does rile me up a bit. But I did the right thing. I did the right thing in walking off for both me and Roy.
Have you seen him since?
I have. He tried to sign me after. But that's how he is. He'll fall out with someone one minute and he's fine the next. I've still got no problem with him. I was leaving Stoke at the time on my way to Portsmouth, and he rang my agent, and he was at Ipswich. And he asked if I'd consider going there. And I just said to my agent, politely tell him to... I'm going to Portsmouth.
Yeah. Even though it's miles away.
Yeah. I'm going that way,
yeah.
not that way.
Put up with train tickets, right? You know what it's like. So, at what point? And again, right? So, I am acutely aware that this podcast is a Stoke City podcast, and one of the things my mates who are all massive Stoke fans say to me is, you get to about 3/4 of the way through and you start talking about Stoke. And my argument is it's about getting to know the person. But with you, the majority of it is going to be about Stoke. You'd be pleased to hear. What point did you hear about the interest from Stoke?
In the car park, when I'd gone out of Kino's office, got into my car, I rang Alex, my agent at the time, and I said, Alex, I'm done. And he went, what have you done? I said, me and Kino's fell out. He's told me to ring you and that I'm done. And he went, well, it's funny you should say that. He said, I've had, there was Leeds again. And he said, I've had Tony Pulis on the phone twice now. He said, if anything ever happens and you're ever available, would you consider going there? Because they're going to have a right go. I think at the time they were starting to spend a bit of money. So Iggy, Danny Higginbottom, Leandri. And they were having a bit of a go at the time, and when he said it, just something clicked in my head straight away. I went, yeah, do it. I was like, yeah, Stoke, I'll do it. And that was it. That was the making of it.
What do you think it was? Because again, Leeds, they were a big club, but what was it about Stoke?
Honestly, do you know, I think it was the fact that he said he's rang twice now. And straight away I'm thinking, well, he obviously likes me and he wants me. That was a big attraction, but I honestly can't tell you what it was. But as soon as he said Stoke, I was like, that's different. Let's have a look at that.
Where do you think I'm going to put this in the most respectful way possible. There's a couple of times you mentioned like going on nights out and stuff like that, and liking to be in and amongst it, and then you mentioned there about Tony Pulis ringing twice. Where do you think this, like, I don't want to say needing to be loved comes from, because that's not what I'm trying to say, but like the like to be seen in a really affectionate way? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, it's everyone wants to be liked, don't they? And when you're a footballer, you need to be wanted. There's no good if no one wants you as a footballer. But I honestly don't know. You'd have to delve deeper into the history of my childhood, I suppose, to find out the answers for that one. I honestly can't tell you that.
So you jump on the A50?
Yeah.
You probably call
it A19. Was it A19?
Yeah.
M1.
Yeah.
A50.
Junction 24.
Bang, here I am.
And you're here. First impressions.
Well, actually, it was to Hull because
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah,
they were playing Hull. So the first time I'd ever met Tony or any of the Stoke lads, Alex had rang me and says they want you involved straight away at the weekend. Can you get down to Hull Friday night? So I've gone from falling out with Keane Thursday, I think it was, to Hull literally Friday afternoon. And I met him and we were not arguing, but we were moaning about the contract. So me and Tony's having this conversation. It was after a pre-match evening meal. And he went, oh, there's a bit of a problem with the contract. You want a bit more on the appearance, don't you? So we're arguing over £50. That's Tony. We're arguing over £50. And I was saying, so I don't know, let's say it was £100 to appearance. He wanted it to be 50. So rather than it just be a flat 100 or 500 or whatever it was at the time, we're just back and forth. And he went, you play every week anyway. You don't need to worry about the... And in the end, I just went, okay, Tony, you win. I just said, let's do it. So we ended up doing it, and that was my first sort of meeting of Tony was in that Italian Hall.
Who did you gravitate to first in this? Well, there'd be players that you know, obviously.
I knew, obviously, Higgy and stuff like that, but the lads were really good. I will say that. Andy Griffin and people like that, we just all got on. They accepted me really, really well, and it was at a time when I was not grown up, but starting to sort of be a bit more of a man and growing up.
I remember, because you signed on loan in the November, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then made permanent in the January, and that was the promotion.
But it was all, the loan thing was just a factual thing. It was just to get me over the line. It was already done and dusted in November, like I said, when I met Tony. So it had to be a loan, and then in January it was done, but it was done anyway.
That season for Stoke fans will always be a very, very, very special season. What was it like to be? Can you describe what it was like to be in the centre of it?
Well, it was not that season.
No, the following season.
The following season. Well, we just defied all odds, didn't we? Everybody, even other footballers, like I used to speak to my mates who I used to play against, and they'd say, you lot of crap. All you do is kick it and throw it. You don't play any football. And we'd beat them 3-0. So all the punters, all the press, they hated us. They didn't like watching us. They didn't want us to win. So when we're up towards the top end of the playoffs, sort of fighting into the automatic places, pushing through the season, I'm starting to think we've got a good group here. They're a different group to the Sunderland lot because they're more... How can I put this? They were like a group of blokes that just had a burning desire and a talent. At Sunderland, we had a group of young lads, young/footballers with a bit of desire and a talent. At Stoke, it was men that wanted to win and compete, whether that was training or games, and it just escalated as we went along, and we kicked on and on and on.
Do you remember the QPR game at the end of the season before?
Yes, where we failed out in the playoffs.
Yeah. I remember I was working at BBC Radio Stoke at the time, answering phones, and I remember a caller coming on Praise and Grumble, the local phone at the time, and he was saying, next season, do you know what? I think we're going to go up automatic. And I remember like people ringing up and saying, what's he talking about? That's not going to happen. We're just going to be in there and in abouts. But did you get that feeling as well? Or
I knew we'd have a chance. I did, that's utopia, isn't it? Automatics. But I knew we'd have a chance of being around it. Because of the players that we had at the time and the players that they were on about attracting to bring in, I knew we'd be around the playoff sort of thing. But to go and do what we did was just special. It was so special.
Can we talk about the playoff season?
Yeah.
So, it's pre-season. You've had many pre-seasons before. You're on a Tony Pulis pre-season. So I imagine they're a little bit
is after the playoffs?
No, this is the pre-season, this time before you got promoted. So this is, 2006 or 2006?
Yeah.
So what are you getting told? What is a Tony Pulis pre-season actually like? And what's it like in and around?
It is absolutely horrific. And I mean horrific, Tony Pulis pre-season. We went to Austria and he had us biking up like the Alps at 6 a.m. Then he'd have us back for breakfast. Then we'd be doing a gym session at 10, and then we would go out and run just before lunch. Then we would finally get the balls out in the afternoon. And you had lads being sick at 6 a.m. because they can't get up this hill. Honestly, it was so brutal. But looking back, it gave us such resilience in our bodies and in here that nothing anyone could throw at us would hurt us, if you like.
What was it that made Tony so special? I know that I'm sure that's a question you get asked a lot, but can you put your finger on it?
No, he just had a way. He just had a way of controlling everybody and controlling things. He controlled this football club. I won't say from top to bottom because that's going to be disrespectful to the owners, but they believed in him and sort of give him free rein, if you like. He controlled everything that was underneath that. Recruitment, everything at the stadium, everything at the training ground. And all the players bought into it. You know, if he didn't like someone, that'd be it, they'd be gone, and they knew about it pretty sharpish because he was a bit like Mick, he was quite straight. So I always got on with him. Even when I left the club, there was no hard feelings. He didn't want me to go, and I still speak to him at points today in my career.
We could go through that promotion season. We could go through every single game. I'm sure you could tell me a story about all of it. But I want to pick out a few games from ones that, as I said, I spoke to loads of Stoke fans on the way. The first one they want to talk about, this want to hear some stories from the Coventry game.
Yeah. Because
that's the famous one where, do you want to explain it rather than me explain it with a goal?
Yeah, well, I was due to play and was it my thigh? I think it was my thigh at the time. I never pull muscles. And I just felt it in training during the week. And I'd had a fitness test before the game, so I'd gone out about 2 hours before kick-off. I'd gone out with a sports science, and I was like, I can still just feel it. So I can feel it a little bit. I want to play. And Tony was like, can't risk it. So you're going to have to be on the bench at best. I said, I don't even want to bring you on. I don't want to use you. I'll wait till next week. So obviously the game went, and it's 1-1. And I've ended up... Normally managers, when they want to make a sub, they'll say, go and warm up. Go and get warm. I just kept going out. So I'd come back, 2 minutes, I'd go out, and I'd run past him. And eventually, 20 minutes left or something like that, he told me to warm up. And I said, I'm warm. I said, I'm ready. I had my pads done, I had my shirt ready, I had everything. And he put me on, and the rest is history, isn't it?
And the celebration?
It just... relief. I just joy, everything just all in one. I don't even know why I did it. Just get it off and get in front of everyone, get all the lads round and stuff. Because if we won that game, we had a feeling, if we won that game, we were saying it before the game in the hotel, if we won the game, this could be us. This could be us, this could be the game. And Coventry weren't easy at the time to go and win at Coventry. They were a horrible side to play against. And we ended up winning, so that goal at the time was special for me and for the club.
Just to confirm, you're exactly the same Nick now.
Correct. Just not the boat race.
Yeah. I'm right, I think was it not Kasper Schmeichel goal for
It was, yeah. It was, yeah. People don't realise that either, because it was so...
You forget you went on loan.
I know, yeah. Yeah, young Kasper Schmeichel.
Have you spoke to him about that goal since?
No.
Do you want to send a message to Kasper Schmeichel?
No, you're all right. I'm sure he's got bigger fish to fry than
he's done all right.
Yeah, he's not done bad, has he?
The other game that people wanted to talk about was Scunthorpe.
Oh, which one, home or away? We won 3-2 at home, and we won 2-1 away. 96th minute, I scored the winner. So we played them away, beat them 2-1. I scored 96 header, which is like rocking horse. Doesn't happen. And then at home, I think, were we third in the league at the time? Third or fourth? So we were right up there. And we were 2-0 down at half time. Anyway, we come together and we ended up winning the game 3-2. And I can't remember at the time if it put us second or not, but it put us in there.
When you think about that end of that season, was it one win? Sorry, was it 4 of the last 12? Really won 4 of the last 12 from that promotion season?
If I remember rightly, it was something like that. We'd not beat Bristol and then Did we draw? We drew with Colchester, didn't we?
The reason why I was looking at it, I was thinking, if you look at that now and you said to a team that, let's say, are coming to the end of the season, you go, right, okay, you're going to go up, but you're only going to win 4 of the last 12. You'd never, you just wouldn't have it, would you?
No. But I don't think we'd have lost many in that 12, would we? I think that's what gave us a fighting chance come last game of the season.
What do you remember that Leicester match?
I cried while I was on the pitch. I had all my family and me. Thomas had just been born. Well, not just been born, but he was a baby, and he'd come to the game and stuff. And the fans tried to get on the pitch, didn't they, before the ref blew his whistle. So we ended up getting them off, and I just remember looking up. It makes me choke now talking about it, and I looking where the families are and stuff, and just realising what we'd done. We'd done it. We'd finally done it, or we're about to, and then obviously blew the whistle and mad.
It was a good night out.
Yeah. Stoke was rocking that night. That's for sure.
Do you see many things back from that day? Do you see the photographs? Do you see?
Yeah, I've got one of. There's me and Thomas after the game. Where I've got him in my arms because all the lads went in the dressing room to celebrate. That's why I'm not on many of the videos in the dressing room straight after, because I went upstairs to get Thomas and I wanted to bring him down and let him be with me and be around it. So I've still got a canvas. Still got a canvas of me and him that day. So,
what did Tony Pulis say to everyone when it had all calmed down? And was there a moment in the dressing room when you all got together as a team and really thought about what you did?
Honest, mate, it didn't calm down. It just went from spraying champagne. Tony couldn't get a word in edgeways. He couldn't get a word. You can imagine what it was like. Even the older boys were just loose, just relief and stuff and everything. Tony just said, enjoy your summer. Just enjoy yourselves, you've earned it. Just be ready to come back because we're going to Austria again.
I remember that night out in Hanley. I remember seeing, do you remember the club called Fluid?
Yes.
I remember seeing John Parkin in Fluid. And then I'm sure I saw him eating a kebab later in the night. Because obviously, I've grown up around here, spent the majority of my life here. And I remember going out a lot in Hanley on Monday nights, Friday nights, Saturday nights. And I could still vividly remember seeing the main street in Hanley, where Flares used to be and all that kind of stuff, where you walk around the corner. I still remember never seen so many people in one area, like walkabout and all those kind of places.
It was crazy. Because Wilco had that Zen, didn't he?
Yeah, Zen, that was it.
So we'd gone in there and obviously word had got around that we were all in, oh my word.
Yeah, we were one of them.
It just went completely full. The queue was not just 1 or 2 people. It was like rows down the street of just queuing people trying to get in, just so they could enjoy it with us. But yes, it didn't stop till the next morning, did it, in Stoke?
Then you went to Magaluf?
Yeah, I went to Magaluf. The older boys that were allowed to come with us. So yeah, some stories for another podcast there on Parky and stuff like that. But yeah, we had a good summer.
I remember, the reason why I remember that specifically is because we were mentioned in an interview when I was working for BBC at the time with Carl Dickinson, and he was meant to be on the Tuesday after Magaluf. So did you get back on the Sunday or the Monday?
I think we got back Monday.
Yeah. And I remember him sending me a text message just saying, I'm really sorry, but I can't even get out of bed.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, because he hit it hard, Dicko. He hit it hard. He was young and daft as well at times, but I would imagine he went right for about a week after.
I really can't get over the fact that I wanted to talk about the football, but the one thing that people talk about football and they say this, that, and everyone wants to be a football expert on tactics and stuff like that. But ultimately, what football comes down to is fans and the fans' experience and what your match day routine is like. So we can talk about this, and people will remember because they remember exactly who they were with that day. They remember where they went to after. They remember, do you know what I mean? They might not remember if they played 4-4-2 and all this kind of stuff, but they remember the feeling which it gave them.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to kind of really focus on in this episode, because you were right at the centre of what everyone was feeling at the time.
Yeah. It was just good to be a part of something that had completely changed the city. It changed the football club completely. We didn't have a training ground, so we'd have to go down the Mitch. We'd get changed here. we'd drive down to the Mitch, train, drive back all sludged up to the stadium, get showered here, eat here and go home. But when we went up, we were able to buy the training ground. It then got converted to what it is, what you see today. So just to have felt like I'd contributed to that and helped the club get that and helped this city have, was it 10 years in the Premier League? I just feel a sense of pride that I was able to help the club do that.
Do you look back with more fondness on the promotion season or the first season of the Premier League?
Promotion, because that's the bedrock, that's the foundation of what allowed us to have that playing against Drogba and Ashley Cole, Lampard, Rooney, Ronaldo. That give us that. Without that hard work and all that hustle and bustle of that promotion season, which is what a lot of our game is missing now, none of it was possible. So for me, the promotion season was the best.
So you go from a great night out in Zen, great few days in Magaluf, and then all of a sudden it's Bolton. First game of the season and everything that happened there with the payout, etc., etc. What was it like in the dressing room after that first match?
It was difficult because they weren't bad at the time, actually, Bolton. They weren't a bad side, and we got beat 3-1. Obviously, Ricardo scored our consolation goal, but we still felt we were in the game. We didn't feel like we'd been outclassed or battered. So when they started paying out and stuff, obviously, you know what Tony's like. He brought the newspaper clippings in, put them in the dressing room. This is what people are thinking of you. This is what they're saying, talking about you. Look at this. Are you going to take that on the chin? Are you taking that? And it just brought us even closer together, if that was possible, and just give us more desire.
My mate Beachy from League, who's a big Stoke fan, is going to kill me if I start talking about the Premier League season without talking about your partnership with Ricardo.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you met him?
Do you know what? I'd heard of him, but not heard of him in the sense that he's a top footballer. I've heard of Ricardo Fuller from Preston, sort of. And I came to Stoke while I was on loan, and we had a training session, and we did a small-sided game at the end of the session, and it was like 6-side, so it was 30 yards or 40 yards by about 25, something like that. And he was absolutely outrageous. The pitch was sludgy, it was a complete mess, and he was dancing around everyone, putting it in the top corner, making the keeper sit down, tapping it in. I was like, how have I never heard of this bloke mentioned in the sort of same breath as all the other top strikers of the division and stuff? And I don't know if it goes back to, like I said earlier, about me knowing characters. I just knew what his strengths were and where he needed things and what he needed and how to get the best out of him. And we just had a good partnership. I think in that promotion season, my 15 goals, my 15 assists, his 15 goals, and was it 10 assists or something like that? There's nearly 60 goals there of our promotion season. So our partnership was massive, not just in the Premier League, but during the promotion season. We just hit it off. We weren't best friends or any of that sort of stuff. We were good friends, but on the pitch, we were really good.
Did you spend much time with him out of football then, or?
So not really, but I bought my house in Stoke, we got backed onto his. So we were literally neighbours. So although we lived sort of back to back, we obviously saw each other and stuff like that, but we wouldn't be barbecuing every weekend together and stuff like that. We were just good teammates and good pals.
So you wouldn't be in Greg's together on a Thursday night?
I wouldn't say that. Not a Thursday night. Not a Thursday night.
I've got something wrong.
Not a Thursday night. Maybe a Saturday night, something like that.
Apologies.
Yeah, we did have the odd night out. We did, yeah.
When you look back at some of the big games from that first season in the Premier League, what are the big ones you remember personally?
First games in the Premier League, obviously.
So in that first season, what are the ones that really stick out for you?
The Villa one. Obviously winning that game because they were a good side. I keep saying that, but there weren't many Premier League teams then that weren't good sides, were they? Villa had Larsson at the back, Friedel in goal, Carew, Milner, Gareth Barry, Ashley Young. So they were good. They were a good side, and for us to turn it round, and obviously Ricardo's goal, if that's Bergkamp or anyone else, Shearer, that'd be one of the top 5 goals of all time for me in the Premier League, because what he did was outrageous. Obviously the pass helps, the detail of pass
it's the
and the
bedrock,
pace.
The foundation.
Exactly, we go back to bedrock and foundations, but yeah, to win that game and for Mama to nod it in there, it was like that Coventry moment. Just hang on, we've got a chance here again. One of them.
I never want this podcast to be something where people go, I've heard that story before, or he's asking the same questions, always gets asked, but I've got to ask you this question, and I'm sure you know it's going to be about Rory's throw. Yeah. But what were we've heard about other people's memories of it on different times. What were your first memories of knowing about this and how it might help you?
We didn't know about it. Ryan might correct me if I'm wrong, but we were training and we were doing a tactical, because Tony liked a lot of tactical stuff, so it was 11v11, I'm sure it was at the time.
The box that you used to talk about, was it called the box? Didn't he ever think?
Yeah, so it was a tactical based thing, and I think the ball had gone out and Rory just ran quickly, picked it up and threw it into the box, and it was like, what? Is he threw that or has he kicked that? So Tony ended up obviously seeing it and told him to do it again and do it again, and eventually it just became a thing. Ball goes out for a throwing out wide, whether Rory's playing right wing, left wing, centre mid, go and take the throw in. Don't care what the shape of the team looks like, get Rory out there to throw it in, and it become one of the biggest weapons in football, and people had slaughtered it back in the day, and now they're doing it still to this day, because it is a massive weapon.
What do you remember about the Hull match? I appreciate this is now just me shouting those games at you. But what do you remember about the Hull game?
Where the keeper kicked... I actually chuckled. I actually laughed, because... in what world is that all right, where you'd rather take a corner against you with all our big lads coming up than Rory launching the ball into your box? It's comical, isn't it? And when I saw him do it, I was like, wow.
That was one of my main memories. I remember, was actually called Chelsea or Arsenal at the time. I remember him running like as fast as he possibly could to put it out for a corner rather than for me to throw.
I think he was at Chelsea at the time.
Yeah. And I was right in the corner next to Booth, and I remember him sitting, like, you have really vivid, a lot like seeing John Parker with his kebab. I remember seeing him full pelt to try and get that ball out for a corner.
It's crazy, and I still watch people try and emulate it and try and do it the same as Rory, and nobody can. The trajectory on it and how he used to get it straight, and any sort of flick or off anyone would just end up in the back of the net, and Ryan was an expert at getting across people and stuff, so it became one of our main weapons.
Is there a goal from that season or a moment from that season that you really cherish, that first season in the Prem?
The Hull game, obviously getting... Listen, it weren't just the goal and the manner of the goal, because it was a good goal. It was the result and the importance. It weren't just... For me, on a personal level, I had Tardelli coming to watch me, who was Trapattoni's assistant manager for Ireland. I don't know for anyone that's watching will know who Tardelli is, but if you look back on the archives of Italian World Cup, he's the one that, runs to the camera when they score and gives it that one. So he was coming to watch me at Hull, and I did really well, score, and we win. So that ends up getting me in the Irish team as well. But so there was a lot of factors around that result, but the main one being that it gave us a chance of staying in the Prem.
Blackburn?
Yeah, another big one. It was a scruffy goal as well, but they all count, don't they? So that was a massive game. I remember it being a hot day. We were fired up. The crowd was so loud. It was a big game because they were in and around us as well, I think I remember at the time. So, 1-0 win and I managed to grab a goal.
Obviously, you've got some amazing memories from your time at Stoke, and obviously it played a huge part of your career. How difficult was it then to know that your time was up?
It was it was horrible and it was tough because, like I say, we built something and I felt like we were building something even bigger and better. But I go back to the young idiot inside me that threw his toys out of the pram because I weren't playing as regular as I wanted, because he'd play Rory on the right instead of me, and we'd fit Dino and Glenn and Matty Evans. So I weren't in the team. I was in the team at times, but I was out and I was starting to get frustrated. And like I said, I went back to sort of the young Liam where the pride kicks in, and I needed to play. I need to be involved. I need to play. I need to compete, and I weren't. So I ended up speaking to Tony, and he said, "No, I don't want you to go. I don't want you to go. I can't replace you at the minute. You're not going." So I spoke to my agent. Anyway, things moved on, and then eventually Portsmouth came in for me and Kits in an offer that included Mark Wilson. And Tony at the time said, "Portsmouth have come in, it's up to you." So I was away with Ireland when it was all getting sorted out, and I ended up making the move.
How long after you left Stoke were you looking back and checking the results? Like, is one of the first things you did? How much were you keeping in touch with people? Was it a bitter feeling when you left, or was it like, oh, this is the opportunity?
Not at all. It weren't bitter at all. It weren't bitter towards Tony. I love the club. I love the club to this day. That's why I'm here. That's why I still work here. And listen, I'll be honest, and Portsmouth fans won't mind me saying it, it was the biggest footballing mistake, decision-wise, that I'd made, because I'd gone from, and they'll understand that I'd gone from playing in the Premier League to go into a club that was close to administration and in a financial mess. So it was a silly thing for me to do, but even sillier that they offered me more money. So at the time, it was get back in the Championship, earn more money, get another promotion, or do you stay and sort of stay out the team or fight for your place in the team? And I chose to leave, and it was the worst decision I could have possibly made.
Is that the one that you really look back on?
My stepdad went mad.
Did he?
Yeah. When I rang him and told him from Ireland, he was like, no, don't do it. But what did I do? I ended up doing it. So.
What was it about him that made you say stay at Stoke rather than go to Portsmouth?
Because of what we'd built, and because he was now a Stoke supporter, and he always wanted the best for me, and he saw the best was for me to stay here and bide my time and get myself back in the team. He backed me to get back in the team, but I didn't.
If you could put an arm around yourself, is that the one where you go, just no, don't do it?
I wouldn't, I shouldn't, and I wouldn't, if I had that decision again, I wouldn't even think twice about it. No.
I feel like we could do this podcast again 10 different times, talk about 10 completely different things. We could speak to 50 different people. We could do it all differently. And I'm not in any way trying to plaster over the rest of your career, because you went on to do some great stuff at different clubs, at Shrewsbury and all this kind of stuff. But I want to get to where we are now. And again, forgive me for jumping to this point, but obviously being back at Stoke, how much pride does it bring you to be involved in the club and doing what you're doing on a daily basis?
Huge pride, especially, with helping bring players through into our first team. But I just love working for the club, because I'm now a Stoke City supporter. I've lived in the area for, what will it be now, 18 years nearly, 18 years. Even when I went to Portsmouth and all the South Coast attractions down there, no, I still wanted to be back here, so I'll never move from here now, no matter where I work. Kids are brought up round here.
Stokey accent?
No, because we're out near Nantwich way. So unfortunately, they've not got the Stokey accent. But yeah, massive pride working for the club, and if I can continue to help and sort of bring players through that saves our club money or makes our club money, then I'm happy to do so.
Any players from the promotion season / first few seasons of the Premier League that you still keep in contact with that people might not think you keep in contact with?
Speak to Wheelo now and again. I used to see Higgy quite a lot because he lived in Crewe, but he's gone to America now.
Doing well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's doing well. His missus was from America, So they ended up going back over there. I think he'd had enough of Sky and all their stuff. So obviously Rick, we still live quite close, and he obviously works at the club as well in the academy. Andy Griffin, character. So yeah, still speak to a few.
What does the future look like?
You just don't know, do you, in football? You just don't know 1 minute to the next. It's a crazy world, the football world is. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm now assisting the 21s with Dave Ibbott, and we're doing an excellent job working under Gareth and stuff. So we'll see where it takes us, and we've sort of had a good back end of the season. It's been difficult, and it's been challenging, but it wouldn't be football if it wasn't, would it? So
what I love about this podcast more than most, and obviously I've loved doing all the podcasts, is the fact that every single time I'll speak to the players, and I want to live vicariously. I've never been a professional footballer. I want to live vicariously through the players. So when I say to them, tell me about some nights out and stuff like that, and they're like, well, I don't really do much. I just like to play on my PlayStation and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear about bottle service. I want to hear about nights out. So Thank you very much for restoring my faith in football briefly. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
So thank you very much to Liam Lawrence for being on this episode of Potter's Pod. If you really liked this one, by the way, there's an episode with Ryan Shawcross just sitting there waiting to be watched. Also, a little bit of a sneak preview. We have got a special guest coming up in the next couple of weeks that you will absolutely adore. As always, if you make sure you subscribe to the Stoke City channel on YouTube, you'll know about it the second anything drops Potter's Pod related. We'll see you soon.